taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole...
My great aspiration, my greatest ambition is to be so good. Now, in that way, I'm tiresome, as I suppose, to live with, because I want to be a fantastic human being.
I am the greatest.
We're not disputing that, Cassius, but how does Sonny Liston feel about it?
He can't feel but one way, and let's take everything I say and like it. Because February the 25th, I'm going to take back my job. I'm the champ. He's no champ. He's a tramp.
When you see men fall, don't laugh. Learn. Learn. Because you're on your way up. And the things that tempt people to fall, you and I are not free from that temptation.
What's good, YouTube? Peace, blessing, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. We back live in the building. Good to see you guys, man. Happy hump day. The Monday makes the week go so much faster. I'm so grateful we had that extra time off, man. Shout outs to everybody in the building. Thank you for tapping in with us this evening. I got Sydney in the building. She's about to pull up. This is a topic that we don't really get into a lot, but I think this is going to be a very, very interesting one. Make sure you leave your thoughts and your comments in the comment section. Do me a solid as well. Hit that thumbs up on the video, repost it, share it out so more people get their eyes on it, so that YouTube receives your word of mouth that we are here, that we are present, that we have something to say. Contact information is down at the bottom here if you want to connect and keep in contact. Cryptic Creed Paranormal airs tonight, 8 o'clock. It is back as promised. I put it off long enough, but we here. So make sure y'all locked in for that. We've been busy all year so far, but it's just more to come. Anyway, Sydney, if you are here and you're ready to go, I will bring you up.
Hello, how are you guys doing? For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sydney Lindquist. I have my bachelor's degree in psychology and my master's degree in environmental education. And one of my biggest passions is disaster science and psychology. I really love understanding the things that affect us that are out of our control and how you can best protect yourself. I'm particularly interested in earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, and stuff like that. But I also do like to research other types of events, which we will be talking about today. We're going to talk about plane crashes. Before I get into the plane crashes, I did want to touch on a couple topics that we have talked about before in our previous sessions. Last week, I believe, we talked. Oh, wait, no, that was the volcano episode. Last week, we talked about volcanoes. There has been an update with that volcano I was talking to you about. The scientists have raised the risk for a possible large-scale eruption in Italy. They found ground uplift in multiple locations around Mount Colombo, Mount Santorini, and Mount, what was the third one? Another volcano that's near, it's not where Pompeii is, but it's near that same vicinity. There's a great number of volcanoes throughout Italy because it's of, and Greece because of its location on a fault line. But they did raise the risk of a potential eruption. So I just wanted to put that out there. It is potentially going to have climatic effects if an earthquake, if a volcanic eruption to that magnitude does happen. So I just wanted to let you guys know, just so you can kind of be up to date with what's going on in case anything does happen. I obviously hope nothing does happen and it's just a false alarm and it's just a bunch of earthquakes and the land rising, but it does seem like there's something going on there. And additionally, in the episode before that one, we talked about a fire in Moss Landing with it's a lithium plant in the Monterey Bay area, Moss Landing, that had caught on fire, and that fire is releasing chemicals into the air that are highly dangerous, like hydrogen fluoride, that raise the risk of skin damage. Like people are getting burns on their arms, they're having lung problems, they're having throat issues. Some people are getting like chemical type irritations to their faces. I wanted to give you an update that today it actually reignited. So if you are in those areas, if you're in Monterey, Moss Landing, Aromas, Watsonville, Elkhorn Slough area, even upwind of those areas, like possibly even towards Gilroy or Santa Cruz, be very, very wary about going outside. You might want to wear a mask. They are seeming to downplay this event. They're just saying that there's smoke, but if you look at the images, you can actually see flames coming from the factory. So it does look like it has reignited, which experts have warned would be a possibility with the lithium fire, since it is highly flammable material. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, especially if you're in those areas, to keep yourself safe, stay updated with what's happening, because it will affect the air quality, especially if it continues. And then it can also have a pretty strong impact on the agricultural products that are coming out of those regions. That area is, Watsonville in particular, is known as like the salad bowl of the US. They produce a great number of products that are shipped across the country and worldwide, including lettuces, spinach, strawberries, a lot of green products. So do be aware of where your food's coming from, and I would advise against getting foods that are from those locations. So I just wanted to give you guys updates on those, since it does have the potential to affect us. But I want to also get into the main event of the night. As you know, the United States has been seeing an uptick in the number of plane crashes. While it could be the result of hype and because this usually doesn't happen, people are going to pay attention to it more. And so when another one happens, that everyone's going to like the psychological aspect to it. But there's also a high chance that it's due to certain changes in our political structures and certain downsizing of certain organizations. But nonetheless, I wanted to talk about the safety of plane crashes, how you can keep yourself safe if you experience one, because it does seem like it's happening more often. Just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with right now, there was the first plane crash in the DC area on the 29th of January. There was a crash in Philadelphia on the 31st of January. There was a Delta flight collision in Seattle on the 5th of February. There was a flight that wrecked in Alaska on the 6th of February. There was a crash in Scottsdale, Arizona on the 10th of February. There was a military jet that crashed in San Diego on the 12th of February. There was a crash in Covington, Georgia on the 16th of February. There was another American flight that crashed in Toronto on the 17th, I believe, of February. And then today there was another crash in why am I pulling blank? What was it? Arizona. It was another one in Arizona near Tucson, which 2 planes collided and 2 people unfortunately passed away. So because of this rash of air disasters, I wanted to give you guys some information about how to stay safe in a plane crash before it happens, like the precautions that you should take, and if you are in the unfortunate circumstance of being in a commercial jet crash. I won't be speaking to small planes. I'll really be talking about commercial jets because those are more likely the ones that you'll be on. And small plane crashes do have different physics, mechanics, and stuff than a larger plane. But some of the stuff does apply. So keep it in mind if you are going to be in a small plane as well. So in general, statistically, you're far less likely to get in a plane crash, even though it doesn't seem like that right now, than you are to get into a car accident. But obviously, we understand that getting into a plane crash is not a good thing. You're literally falling out of the sky, or you're running into another thing that's going like 300 to 500 miles an hour. So plane crashes can be highly destructive. They can be deadly. There was a recent crash in, I believe it was Seoul in Korea, and that killed everyone on board. So it can have very tragic consequences if you aren't able to get off the plane. So yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys about how to stay safe. One of the first things that I always say, no matter what disaster I'm talking about, that can make the difference between you surviving and not, is to stay calm. A lot of people hear that said, like, oh, stay calm, people. But it's actually very, very important. If you're ever in a very stressful situation, if you panic, that can be dangerous because it can prevent clear thinking. When you don't have clear thinking, you're more likely to make poor decisions. You're more likely to do illogical behavior. I've heard stories before of firefighters watching people panic and run back into their house that was on fire because they wanted to, like, oh, I need to save this object or paperwork or whatever. And because they were panicking and freaking out, they didn't think clearly and literally ran back into a burning building and got hurt. If you panic, it can really hinder your ability to assess a situation properly. And it can also prevent you from responding to the situation in an effective manner, which is super important when involved in a plane crash, because oftentimes the most important thing is, if you did survive once it lands, you have to get off the airplane. It doesn't matter if you're on land or on water, you have to get off the airplane, because if you're on water, obviously the plane's going to start sinking. And the pull of the weight underwater can actually pull you underwater as well. And you can also be hit by things that are like floating up really quickly that are on the airplane. But you want to get as far away from the plane as possible. If it hits land, you also want to get off in the case of a fire. Obviously, there is extremely flammable materials all over the plane, inside the plane. And you do not want to be inside a plane if it is on fire. The smoke itself can kill you. One expert that I was reading his insights about surviving a plane crash before, he himself had survived a plane crash. And I believe him and his wife were the only two people that survived, because the people, when they landed, they stayed on the plane waiting for help, but they actually asphyxiated because of the carbon monoxide that was building up on the inside of the plane. And they sat there waiting to be rescued, but they ended up suffocating. But since he was an expert in this type of the stuff, he knew that you had to get off. So he like grabbed his wife's hand and took her off the plane, and they did survive. So if you are in this situation, like, be as calm as you can. Like, even if you have to like faux meditate or like put your mind somewhere else or do like deep breathing, distract yourself. It can reduce your risk of panicking, full-blown panicking, having a panic attack and making really stupid decisions. It can also reduce your risk of like physiological distress, because obviously your body and your mind are not disconnected. If you panic, your body can have physical responses. Your heart rate will go up, your breathing rate will go up. So you're more likely to induce a panic attack. You're more likely to create a freeze response where your muscles tighten up and you can't get up, you can't do anything, which you obviously don't want to do if you have to get off the plane. Some people can faint, pass out, or some people that are older or more infirm, if they have like a health condition, they can even induce a heart attack, which is obviously not something you want to pair with an airplane crash. So staying calm is super vital in the moments before you even hit the ground. Once you know that something is happening with the plane, keep yourself as calm as possible. You'll also want to put on and tighten your seatbelt. I know this is, a lot of people are like, what's a seatbelt going to do? Like, the plane is literally falling out of the sky. Like, how is a seatbelt going to save me? But it can genuinely reduce the risk of injury. Most people that have survived airplanes survived because they had that on. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of force that occurs when your plane hits the ground, so you're going to be thrown. You can have head injuries from being thrown into things, or even being thrown into the people next to you. You can also, if it's in a water crash, it can, like, the water can break the windows and like wash you out of the plane, and you could kind of get dragged into the water. But plane, the jet seats, the jet seat belts are designed to withstand impacts of 16 times the force of gravity. So they're meant to hold you back when those planes crash. So they do factor that in. They do help you prevent that kind of like whiplash injury. That's also why you want to assume that like position they always kind of show you on the pictures in the airplane, because when you bring your chin down to your chest and tuck your head in, it reduces the risk of getting like a whiplash injury, breaking your neck because your head gets thrown forward. It also protects your soft, vital throat that you don't want to get damaged. You need it to breathe. You need it to eat. It's not a good thing. It also has your carotid artery. It's not a good thing if you get this part of your body damaged. It also, to a degree, can help protect your chest from getting injuries, because then things will come at your skull, which is a lot more strong than your rib cage in terms of like direct impact. Not saying you want to get hit in the head though, but that's why you want to cover your head as well. So make sure you put on and tighten your seatbelt. Again, a lot of people think it's overrated, but it's definitely not. It's the same in car crashes. People that die in car crashes more often than not did not wear a seatbelt. And the same goes for airplanes. You also, if obviously you're over water, put on that life jacket. If it starts, do so before you hit the water. You want to kind of get yourself situated in the decline rather than trying to figure it out once the plane has hit the water and everything's chaotic and everything like that. But yeah, make sure you're wearing that life jacket because that allows you to pop right up out of the water instead of just sinking. Especially if you don't know how to swim. And in the case of a water evacuation, as I said, you really need to get off the plane. And so you'll want to have that life jacket because that will keep you from getting, like, if you're just trying to hold yourself up and tread water, most people can only do so for like 10 to 15 minutes before they get too tired. And that's not enough time unless you're like literally right next to land. In that case, you could swim to land. But if you're like out in the middle of the ocean, that's not enough time for people to come save you. So wear that life jacket because it'll keep you from sinking. And it'll give you a chance to like relax and rest on the top of the water without having to put all of your energy into like frantically trying to stay above the surface. As you get off the plane, if you have small kids, put them in your arms. Even if they're like an older child, hold them in your arms because oftentimes people can freak out if they panic and they can stampede. Also, I'm sure we've seen it in disaster movies where they like are holding hands with their child and then there's a huge crowd and the child just like they accidentally let go of their hand and that person disappears into the crowd and then they don't make contact with them again. Hold on to them and hold them close to you because it reduces the risk of you guys being separated. Obviously your child will need you to protect them, to be there for them. So have them in your arms. And then if you're with an adult, a fellow, like a partner, your parent or something like that, grab their hand and command them basically, go to the door and point to the door, the closest exit or the hole in the plane. Because oftentimes, as I said, people will, if they panic or if they're frozen, a lot of people will have a freeze response where they'll just be sitting there like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? Where do I go? Do I wait? Like a lot of people don't have it in their head of like what the proper, what do you call it? Series of events should be. And so they'll be so stunned that they won't take any action. And so if you see somebody doing that, like grab their hand physically and point at the door and tell them what to do, because we are fortunately a herding type creature where in situations like that, we do look for a leader. We look for somebody to tell us what we need to do next. And if you are able to be that person, because you can save people's lives just by directing them where to go and how to get out. If you have to, you can push people, but do be careful about causing a crush where like people are like all trying, like if there's no exit or if like people at the exit aren't going out, like don't push from behind because that can cause people to literally like suffocate by being pressed against other people. That has happened before. I don't know if it's ever happened with plane crashes, but I do know that it's happened at like concerts or large venues when there was a fire or some other disaster where people like panicked, stampeded, and then they like literally crushed people to death because they were trying so hard to get out the doors but couldn't. So but it is okay, like in these emergency situations, to physically guide people out because sometimes they do actually need that. Another thing too, if there is, if the plane's on fire, that is also a time that you'll want to evacuate as soon as possible. The smoke itself, because a plane is largely airtight, it has the capacity to fill up with fumes, smoke, and invisible gases as well. So even if there is no fire, you really should get off as soon as possible. But if there is a fire, definitely leave the plane as soon as you possibly can. If you have to kick out the windows, do that. If you have to like pull open the door or whatever, get out as soon as possible, because as I said, fire and planes do not work together. There are, or at least there should be, fire extinguishers by every door, I believe, is the standard. And so if you are close to those, grab them and use them if you can. But your primary goal should be getting off the plane. Another thing that you can do even before you get on the plane is picking prime seats. It might seem like, I mean, it's just the plane's falling out of the sky, so does it really matter where you sit? But the plane is slightly safer in certain areas of the plane than others. They've found that the middle seats at the back of the airplane are statistically the safest. In all of the studies that they've done, only about 28% of people that are in those areas die, whereas the middle of the cabin has a fatality rate of about 44%. The reason why the back third has the back third had a fatality rate of 32%. The reason the back middle is the best is because that's where the wings are. They put a lot more reinforcements in the regions where the wings are because the wings are very heavy. The engines are very heavy. You might think like, oh, why do I want to be next to the engines? Like, what if it catches on fire? But the way that they've designed planes, in a emergency like that, wings will actually break off the plane. That way the wings and engines fall away from people, and the people in the cabin. So statistically, you'll want to sit in like the middle back towards where the wings are, because it will reduce your risk of the back and the front are more likely to get crushed because the plane is either going to like nosedive, or it's like the tail is usually the weakest spot. And yeah, as I said, the back third and the middle third and the front third have a fatality rate of about 30% on average. A little bit higher than that, but the back middle is the one that is 28%. So your odds aren't particularly good. In an airplane, it's basically 1/3 of people survive, but traditionally, if you're by the wings, you're more likely to be safe. It's also easier to evacuate from those seats in a water evacuation too, because you can walk on the wings to get off and then jump off from there. But yeah, the location that you pick is better. Also, having an aisle seat will enable you to evacuate faster. Though I have heard that a window seat can also be good because then you can like kick out the window and you can get out through there. And I know a lot of people are put off by the idea, like, why do I want to be next to the window? There was an event, I think it was in 2024, where like the window literally fell out of the plane. And so the person was just like in their seat as the wind is blowing them and stuff. So maybe if you're going on a Boeing plane, don't sit by the window, but all the other planes, you can sit by the window. Or I guess Boeing planes do make it easier to kick out the windows if they just fall out for no reason. So maybe in a Boeing plane you do want to sit next to the window if it crashes. But the location can really make a difference. You can also kind of sit near the toilet. A lot of people probably don't want to sit next to the toilet because there's gonna be people walking in and out, and then obviously like it's a toilet. Who wants to sit next to a toilet? But that area is slightly safer just because of that extra, all the walls and stuff make it, and the plumbing and stuff. It just makes it a teeny bit safer. But obviously there is a lot of luck involved in surviving plane crashes, and how the plane is crashing. But yeah, definitely pick a seat that reduces your risk if that's something that you can afford, or that's something that you can do. Let me see, what else do I want to say? Do you have anything to say right now?
Yeah. The best seat in the house for me is right at home.
Same here.
Just,
I stopped flying in 2020, and I don't plan on doing that ever again, probably.
yo, those percentages are crazy to me. You tell so my best chances are still technically my worst chances. If the plane lands in water, okay, I have a slightly better chance at surviving that, even though you still got to consider hypothermia, the fact that a lot of people don't know how to swim, that under what's the word, undertake is like what you said, how as the plane is descending, that pull from the water actually takes you with it. Undercurrent, that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like none of the odds at all. I like to be honest with you, and rest in peace to everybody who lost their life in one of these situations. But I would think, right, that if I'm in that position and I noticed that something's off about the airplane. I've never jumped out of anything before. This would literally force me to do it. But I would think at that point, the parachutes, at least there's do they have parachutes? First question. Secondly, really, I've never heard anyone say this plane crashed and there were survivors because they utilized parachutes. I've never heard it. Maybe I'm lost on it. I've never heard it. So my thing is, why don't if they have them, why don't they have enough of them? And in that moment, I would be scared as hell. Like we thousands and thousands of miles in the air. I am forced to save my life. I have to do what I have to do. I've never passengers, people who fly often, even newcomers, people who are just getting on. Is there training for this? Are people being trained to in? I would think so, but then it's like, well, a lot of these folks aren't here no more. So how much training could they have possibly gotten?
I know for parachuting at least, it requires a lot of skill, and you kind of have to have good conditions for most like newbies to jump. Like the plane has to be level and stuff like that. There aren't parachutes on a commercial airline, even though I think it would be kind of funny, like, oh, you have two bags, you have your parachute and you have your but there's a lot of complications that would come with a plane crash that would probably make it difficult to just parachute out of a crashing airplane. I know jetliners do go at a much higher altitude, which is why you need like the air masks. So I don't quite remember where the breathable level starts, but I definitely know the area that they fly is at the height, or like a little bit higher than the height of Mount Everest. So there's going to be a good deal, like over at least 10,000 feet that aren't going to have breathable air. Because I'm pretty sure by the halfway point, or like 3/4 point on Everest, you have to have supplemental oxygen, or you will basically suffocate trying to get to it. So I don't know if you'd even be able to breathe the air if you like start, but then again, you'd be crashing pretty fast. So I don't know how much you descend before you would be able to jump out. But it's not entirely feasible for everyone to have parachutes on the plane. But I just find this funny because I looked it up and it said no commercial airplanes do not have parachutes due to the practical challenges and the fact that aviation is statistically safe. And I'm like, is it though? Is it safe anymore? But it does require a lot of training. Most people wouldn't be able to like intuitively know how to jump properly because you have to like release the parachute at a certain point and you have to understand like what to do if the parachute goes wrong because it can get tangled, it can spin, like there's a lot of things that can happen even to the parachute. So I mean, with the way people are these days, like I'm like, we can't even trust them to act normal on a plane. Like you really expect them to be able to handle a parachute too. So there's a lot of reasons why parachutes aren't a safety feature, but it is unfortunate because it could be useful in certain situations, I think.
Man,
also, go ahead.
See, here I'm not. I was just gonna say I call cap. I call cap. Why? Because you build ships and you build these structures that can take you to fucking the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all can go to the bottom of the fucking ocean. You can go to different planets and shit. You mean to tell me you can't build something that would give people a better chance at surviving if they had no other choice but to evacuate an airplane? I just call cap on that. I don't even, especially with all these talks about cloning, and you're not going to convince me that you can create or build something that would give people a better chance than 28%. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Thank you. I can I can sit by the toilet. I can sit by a window and kick out the window. But you, yeah, all right.
It makes me think of this quote. He was a comedian from, I think he was from like the early 1900s or maybe a little bit later. George Bernard Shaw. He said, "The optimist invented the airplane and the pessimist invented the parachute." I guess that's kind of where we're at.
I guess so. I guess so.
But I definitely,
I don't.
I wish there was a way, because that would be very useful for like. But then again, imagine having to have that added on to the spiel. So in case of an emergency, you're gonna have to put on your parachute, and here's a quick 10-minute lesson on how to jump out of a plane. I don't know how well that would work.
I just automatically.
We need something.
So a couple things here, right? I assume, and this is just me personally, I don't know how anybody else feels. I'm a first timer getting on a plane hypothetically. You're basically responsible for the lives of hundreds of people. And from what I'm understanding, the pilot don't do shit anyway, for real. They're just there. The airplane pretty much does the job. The pilot is just there to be on the radio and all that. He's not really flying the plane. So you are responsible for hundreds of people to get to a destination. You're thousands of miles in the air. My life is in your control, and you're telling me that you don't have no real protocols. There's no guidelines. There's no what if in the case of an emergency. All you telling me is to put a mask over my face, put my hands over my head like I'm in an earthquake, and get underneath my seat when stuff starts falling off. And that's all you got to offer me. Not to mention,
in the event of an emergency, put your hands over your head, stick your head between your legs, and kiss your ass goodbye. My mom's favorite joke.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Hey.
What were you saying? Sorry, I just had to add that in.
What was your experience like being on an airplane? You've done it before. I've never done it before.
Really? That's interesting.
I've never been on an airplane.
Huh.
That's why I said
No, go ahead.
I'm comfortable right here. No, I'm just saying I'm comfortable right here in my nice warm seat on the ground.
I've been on a couple flights. When I was 5, we flew to Portland, Oregon Seattle, I think, from California. And then I've flown to Indianapolis from California. I've flown to New England, like Massachusetts area, or I think we flew into New York and then we drove to Massachusetts. And then I've taken a flight to Florida, Miami, and then I've also taken a couple flights to Arizona, and I think I also flew to Illinois. I took a train to Illinois. But I had pretty normal experiences. Like the one in to Oregon was actually pretty interesting because that was right before 9/11, and so I got the cool experience where actually like my dad and I got to walk out onto the tarmac and like literally walk up to see the planes as they were like sitting there. You could actually go out past the gate and like look at things. So we went to scream at the airplanes because I was only like 4. Um, but you basically just like walked onto the plane, like no TSA, no nothing. They didn't pat. I think they might have like checked in your bag to make sure you didn't have like stuff in there, but they really didn't do much. I think you might have walked through a metal detector. But it was, I've had a lot of very boring rides. Like we really didn't have turbulence. We really didn't have any issues or anything. So I've always found it fun, like interesting, because I enjoy looking outside, like watching everything and trying to figure out like what are we above, like what am I looking at down below. So from like a explorer's attitude type perspective, I did find them kind of enjoyable. I thought it was cool to be in the air and to like be part of that. But I have since 2021, I believe, that's when I basically told myself I'm not going to fly ever again. Whenever I travel across the country, I would only be using alternative transportation. So I've taken, as I said, I took a train from Colorado to Illinois when my husband moved. But I've basically banned myself from using airplanes because of the environmental impact. Basically, airplanes are far, far more polluting than any cars. It takes a lot of cars to amount to the same impact that airplanes have. And so, kind of as a way to stand up against climate change and make a statement, I don't fly anymore. And after this year, after everything that's happened, I certainly will not be flying anymore. I've even told my family members, my mom and my mother-in-law, they both live in San Jose, and they would fly and visit me. But I've told them, do not fly. I would much rather you drive or take a train or not visit at all. I will drive to come to see you if I have to, but please do not fly. I even we were gonna do like a redo wedding because our wedding was during COVID time, so we didn't have our friends and family there in person to do our wedding with us, and we were going to do it on our 10-year anniversary in December, but I decided to cancel that because I don't want to encourage my friends to fly out to see me. Because at this point, with everything that's happening, I mean, I can't say for sure. I'm not an airplane expert. I'm not researching and studying these airplanes, and I'm not there to see what happens. So there's a chance that some of these plane crashes really don't have anything to do with all of the things that are happening in our political system. But just the number and frequency of these airplanes just makes me think that there is something terribly wrong with the flying industry. So I'm out. I'm done with it. I'm not participating, and I'm not getting on any airplanes in the foreseeable future. I I don't know how the statistics are going to change, but it really seems like there's a pretty substantial risk now, and not to mention Boeing and all of their issues where they're literally having wheels fall off the plane and entire side panels flying off the plane, and the windows are falling off the plane, and like electrical. There was somebody that took a video showing that parts of the plane were literally held together with duct tape. I've since learned that it was most likely the airlines tape. Like they have a special tape that like closes holes and stuff. But I'm like, tape though? Like, come on. That seems quite like, if imagine you go into surgery and like they open a whole cavity in your body and you wake up and it's just held together by tape. Like, what if that peels off? What do I do? So yeah, like I don't know if I feel good about that.
Yeah, I'm not, to the viewers, I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm not trying to deter anyone from flying. You are more than willing and capable of doing whatever you so choose. If you want to be in the air, go for it. And on top of that, I'm not against it. I would like to see other parts of the country. I would like to get out of the United States to take me a nice vacation. I want to see Paris. I want to see London. I want to go to some pretty good locations and just be a spectator. I get tired of the city traffic and, you know, but every time I turn on the TV, there's a plane crashing. So if you're trying to promote this to be safer than driving, you're not really doing a good job. And
statistically, like using math, it's safer. I'm like, okay, but no, it does not seem like it anymore.
Right. So what are the pros and cons? I mean, I really like, if you're being unbiased and you're trying to say, all right, I don't want to scare no one away, so these are the advantages to it, but there are some things about this that might not be so flattering. What would you say to people, especially first timers like myself?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like literally the only advantage to me in my head was like it's fun. It could be fun, I guess. But it's faster. That's literally the only reason why it's such a popular mode of transportation, is it's faster. It's I don't really think it's cheaper. I can't really do the math in my head right now on like the gas per distance and like the airplane tickets. It might be slightly cheaper for airplanes, but obviously airplanes come with all of the other stuff. Like obviously when you fly somewhere, unless you're staying with family, you're probably going to be staying in a hotel. And then you have to pay for the trip back. And like some of the plane trips can be inexpensive. Like from San Diego to San Jose is only like $70 if you get like a Southwest flight, which is pretty good with their deals. Even though I don't know if it's gone up since I've last flown. It can be like $100 where gas could be like $200, $300 to get all that. But there's not a lot of benefits, to be honest, besides the speed. Like you're more likely to get sick on an airplane because of you're literally in like a petri dish with all of the people and all of their coughing, and it's recycled air. So you're basically breathing in everything people are breathing out. That's why 90% of the time, if you go on a flight, chances are you're going to be getting sick in the next couple days. People always have a sore throat or my nose is running. I'm like, yeah, it's because you went on an airplane. There's also the hassle, especially if you're traveling during a holiday. You're going to have to deal with all the crowds, deal with waiting 2 hours in the airport and sitting around, and then you have to get patted down, and then you have to pay attention to like how you pack your bags and all of the toiletries, and you can't, like, they'll literally take your stuff if you can't bring it on the airplane, and they'll like send you through an x-ray machine and see what you're like. it can be invasive. It can be like really obnoxious. It can be stressful, especially if the like I've been in the situation where they changed the gate the last minute, and so I was waiting for my flight, and I look at the board, and suddenly my it's like a different location, and then I have to like run across the airport to try and find the new location. So there's that stress. There's also the hassle of like your flight gets canceled, the weather. Like at least with driving, you could find alternate routes, but if like the weather is bad, you can't really dodge the weather. You're not going to like, oh, we're going to actually fly over Texas instead because there's like, no, they're not going to, they're just going to land somewhere else or like turn the plane around or whatever. And then the idea that like you're with a bunch of other people that you have to trust. Like when you drive your car, you're the one driving your car. So you get to decide like, I'm going to drive fast. I'm going to drive slow. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to stop here. Like, nobody's going to hijack your car. Minimal risk, but still something that we deal with. So you have to like deal with all the other people. And then also the aspect of like, some people are obnoxious to sit next to. They want to talk to you the whole trip, or they smell bad, or they have annoying kids that are like poking you and trying to like hassle you during the whole trip. And then you're in a seat where like you get this much space. And then oftentimes you can't like the food's terrible on a lot of the flights, and sometimes you can't like do certain things that you might want to do on the planes. Like I've heard of people that couldn't bring their knitting needles because they were worried about it being a weapon on a plane. So there's a lot of inconveniences that come with airplane flights. So I think if you want to go places that are far away, obviously it's mostly going to be your only choice unless you are willing to take like a cruise, or like you're lucky enough to have a sailboat or something. But I think for the most part, like if you want to travel to other countries, your only option really is to fly. If you're going across oceans, like just getting from the East Coast to New England, I think it takes 2 weeks by ship. So it still takes a really long time to use that form of transportation. So it really is the fastest way to travel. I think airplanes go like 600 miles an hour. Let's see. Yeah, 575 to 600 miles per hour. So they're able to go much faster than basically any other form of transportation, unless you're like in a military jet. So that's to me the only benefit. It's just the speed that you get there. And that's kind of why I'm at the point where I'm like, well, there's, as much as I'd love to travel and see the world, I would absolutely love to go to many parts of Europe. There's a lot of I'd love to go to the city of my name, visit Australia one day. But it's just not worth the risk to me anymore. Like, because I have kids and because I know the environmental impact and all of this stuff that's happening now, I can't justify using that form of transportation unless it was like an absolute emergency. But even then, like, I feel like I would have alternate options. And none of my family lives outside the United States anyways. So I really wouldn't have a way to justify traveling overseas. And I know a lot of people these days, I've noticed there's, especially with the influencer culture, people like use planes just as frequently as they go on drives. And it's becoming like a indignant, like kind of people are being bitchy about it, where they're like, you haven't flown to see insert location. I travel all over and I see all the, like, you have to travel. If you want to go somewhere, go and do it. Like, is it necessary though? It's like the same type of energy as the people that fell into debt just to go to Disney World. It's just like, it's a luxury. Why are you making it sound like you're uncultured because you haven't been on an airplane and haven't gone to the specific city to see the specific bar? I'm like, go where there's plenty of places that are cool nearby. Like there you can do day trips. Like, I love going on drives with my husband, and I would much rather go on a day drive than like spend $1,500 just to go to this money hole for a week.
I take a cruise.
That would be cool.
I'll do it. I'd rather be on a boat. Yeah, I would rather be on a boat than on an airplane. I'm not even gonna hold you. I can do that. I enjoy the water. I enjoy being anywhere near water.
Mm-hmm.
My only concern with that, and I don't know if this is in every instance, is when I see these videos of ocean liners that get smashed by just huge waves that just come out of nowhere. You look at that big ocean, like there's nothing. It's just nothing out there but that boat, and it's just nothing but water that just keeps coming and coming, and it's like you all alone out there.
Did you watch the movie Poseidon?
I love Poseidon. Love that movie. That's one of the reasons right there.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of got me. Yeah, because I don't think that I don't really know how accurate that is. A boat turning upside down, and you still got. They made it seem like they had 3-4 hours to get from where they were all the way to the top and out. I don't think that is accurate at all. I love the movie, but come on.
The one really that stuck out to me, that when you said if stuff happens often, it was in 2013. It was literally dubbed the poop cruise because they were traveling around Mexico, and the engine room caught fire and the ship lost power. And basically, because the ship lost power, their sewage services weren't working properly, so people had to start going in like plastic bags and like on the floors of the ship, or like into the empty toilets and stuff like that, and people were stuck there for a couple days, I think. And that's what I always think of when I think of cruise ships, because there's also this, I've heard a lot of horror stories about cruise ships being like really disgusting in general. Like, they're very unclean. The sheets don't get washed very frequently. Like, people say there's like rats, and people have gotten like lice and bugs and stuff from being on those ships. Like, the food can be bad depending on like where the ship is docking and stuff like that, like where they're buying the food from. So I've heard that the quality can be bad. And I know that the type, like the way the boat is, it can capsize. Like, it can tip over on its side. And like, just looking off this 10 worst cruise ship accidents, another one which I also would go with the conditions. There have been ship viral outbreaks. This one particular one, it was a 12-day cruise, and people got the stomach flu basically, and 2,687 passenger out of the 2,687 passengers, 446 of them had nausea, vomiting, and other stuff at the same time. And I'm like, that makes it sound a lot less appealing. But I guess you'd want to do your research onto the specific cruise lines, because I know some of them can be quite nice. I've had friends go on them and they've said good things about them. My mother-in-law, I think she did or was going to go on this like Norwegian or something cruise, and it's supposed to be really good, but I know that they have their own disasters, their own sets of disasters. Nothing to the degree of like the Poseidon or the Titanic in recent years, but there can still be incidences on those ships as well. But at least you're not falling out of the sky when it happens.
I like those odds.
But rogue waves are possible. There was an oil rig in the Bering Sea, I believe, that was toppled by. It was caused by a storm, a nearby storm, but rogue waves are a thing. Like what happened in Poseidon is a potential, even though that one wasn't based on a true story. But yeah, rogue waves can happen. They can be pretty. I've heard of some like 60 to 100 feet. I've heard of ones in the past that were higher, but those are obviously more rare. They can be caused by undersea volcanoes, earthquakes, or nearby weather systems that are pushing the waves. I think they can be caused by other things like currents under the ocean, but they're not as common, or at least I based on the research, it's probably not. It's not that common, but again, it's mostly based on what people see, and obviously we're not out in the middle of the ocean all the time, so we probably don't see all of the ones that do happen. So it's hard to say how many happen at any given time, but they definitely do still happen. I imagine, though, it probably wouldn't affect cruise ships as much because most cruise ships aren't going to be going out to sea that far. They're probably more likely to be closer to land. But it is still a risk to keep in mind if you are going to go on a cruise ship.
Noted.
Yeah.
Noted. It will be my first real vacation will be on a ship before it's a plane. I need to test the waters first.
It's funny,
and
my husband.
Then maybe, just maybe, if this kind of.
Oh, sorry. You can finish. There's a tiny bit of a lag.
You good? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's funny because my husband's in the Navy now and he has to spend a lot of times on his ships. I asked him probably a couple months ago, but I'm like, hey, just out of curiosity, what would you think of going on a cruise? Because I think it was when my mother-in-law mentioned the Norwegian cruise, and he looked at me, he's like, heck no. You really think I want to take a vacation on a ship? No. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess really be on. To each his own. Anything that any last thoughts on this particular subject itself?
one thing I wanted to add too, before you fly, you can also take some minor preparations that can help you in case there's an emergency. One thing that they recommend is having a full meal before you fly, because number one, it's nice to. Do you mind? It's nice to not be hungry while you're on that flight, especially if it's a multi-hour flight. The food typically is lackluster. It's usually like peanuts and a tiny water bottle, or like a cup of water, or like cheap wine. So it's good to get a full meal in your stomach before you go onto the flight. It also is helpful if there is a disaster, you have energy and you have food, so you're not starving while you're waiting to be rescued. Also, when you are for utility purposes, like, don't wear flip-flops and closed-toed shoes, because that will make it harder to run through the airport if you're late for the flight, or if the flight gets delayed and gets moved and you have to like change locations and whatnot. But it's also, if there is a accident, it having closed-toed shoes is really important, especially if you have to like walk over land, or like you're less likely to kick those shoes off if you're swimming. Like if you have closed-toed shoes, they'll stay on your feet. And then also wearing comfortable clothes, not only because you want to stay comfortable while you're on that flight, have like easily removable layers in case it's cold or it gets really hot. But also in an event, you'll want to have clothes that match the weather, and cover yourself up if you're going to be outside for long periods of time. So like what you wear to the airplane can also make a difference in your safety if there is an event. And then also, if there is a plane crash, please save your life over your luggage. Don't go back into the plane trying to save your suitcase. I've heard of people trying to do this. It's not worth it. Same goes for any types of accidents and fires and whatnot. If there's a fire, if the thing that you're inside is falling out of the sky, or is on fire, or is filling up with gas, don't rescue your stuff. Save your own life. It is way more worth it to save your own life than to save whatever clothes you can rebuy that's in your suitcase. Even if you lose your souvenirs, you can just buy it on eBay, I promise. So please don't save your stuff over your life, or even over your kids. Like, prioritize your life, prioritize your kid's life. And also do listen to the staff on the airplane. They are trained, they're there to protect you. If you, sometimes they might know things that you don't. And so disregarding their instructions could be dangerous for you. So please respect the people that are working at the airlines. They're just people too. They don't deserve to be treated like shit. So whether or not there's an emergency, treat the people around you with respect, because that goes a long way. And to be honest, if there is an emergency, you don't want the last thing you said to the person next to you to be nasty. You want to be nice to everyone, because they could be the one that needs to save your life. So keep that in mind. Just be a decent person. And then, like, just please don't be the person that wants to do things on an airplane to make a statement. That's not necessary. You don't need to do things, hurt people just to make a statement, especially on an airplane. That's just cruel. So yeah, be good people, please. And remember, hold your hand, kiss your ass goodbye. Hopefully not. Maybe get a parachute, learn how to use one.
There's a thought. I would absolutely purchase my very own, just because, And even if y'all don't want to teach me, I will go to YouTube. YouTube has everything.
Hey, they have
I
indoor
will Google.
skydiving. You could try that too.
Oh, right. That's something that I always wanted to do. That seems fun. And
It was.
at least I know I'm not going to plummet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nah. My condolences to everyone, every single person that lost their life in one of these accidents. My final thoughts: it's too much. Y'all wasting too much of our money as it is. So if you're going to be blowing it on stuff, make sure that it works properly.
Mm-hmm. Could not agree more. And if
I
you
know a
are going
lot
to fly, don't fly on Boeing.
Real spill. Real spill. Well, look, we about to get up out of here though. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of y'all evening. You know the energy. You know how to find me. All I ask is y'all do me one favor.
Push the goddamn button. Push the goddamn button.
I will look up Rome,
Like
New York, by the way, Dawn. Thank you.
Oh yeah, shout out to Don for tapping in and everybody watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on IG, Twitter, everywhere. Um, happy Hump Day, and I will see you guys. Yes, yes, yes. That virtual open mic. I'm still trying to get that together right now. It's a little slow, but I'm trying to get us back there again. So we'll see. But
I'll try to get classmates too tomorrow.
oh yeah, shout out to Linda too for pulling up last week too. Um,
That's her book.
that's what's up. That's what's up. Cryptic Creed Paranormal is out now. It dropped at 8. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go check that out. Y'all be easy. I will see you guys tomorrow. Sydney will be back Friday, and we out.